All right, we're going to be starting soon here. Again, if you don't already have a Figma account set up, please go have that. Please go do that. There should be a link in the chat if you don't know how to do that. And feel free to send any questions. We have a few people moderating the chat just to make sure they're able to answer questions I might not see. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, today is the second workshop of our workshop series. My name is Dylan Nguyen. If you weren't here last time, used to be a UX researcher and designer at Geico. I was also an officer for the UX Club for about 2.5 years during my bachelor's and master's at UTD. I'm going to be one of your instructors for this workshop series, and I'll let the other instructor introduce herself briefly.
Hello, my name is Sanjana, and I was leading the last Figma session if you were here. I am a UX designer at Chase, and I used to be in the UX club as well in UTD, and yeah, happy to help you guys learn.
All right. So let's recap what we did last time really quickly. The first thing we did was we went over the double diamond approach. This is kind of just like an industry standard as to how people tend to approach research and design. And then we went over the specifics of the research and design process. So, what we actually do in each step, who interacts with what elements in each step, what types of tools we tend to use. And then we went over our uses for Figma and kind of like why we're teaching you guys Figma specifically, its pros, its cons, why it's become kind of the industry standard, and how you can use it during the process. We talked about what a low fidelity screen is, and then we talked about how to make a low fidelity screen. At the end of last week, I think most of you guys ended up with something similar to what you see on the right here. Don't worry if you didn't attend last week or if you didn't complete the project last week. I went ahead and made templates for everyone, so we're all going to be starting from the same place this week. And then I wanted to talk over the schedule for the rest of this series. Today is February 12th. So you see, we're going to be talking about high five frames today. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about prototyping. I'll also be leading that session. And then after that, we're going to be talking about components, auto layout, style guides, and then variables. So those are all super neat things to know if you want to really get into the weeds with Figma prototyping and being able to make really, really cool stuff within Figma. All right. So today we're going to be talking about high fidelity screens. What do I mean by that? First of all, I just wanted to clarify I might use the terms hi fi and high fidelity interchangeably. Those two mean the same thing. The same goes for low fi and low fidelity. So if that happens, please know that that's what I'm talking about. And then, yeah, so a high fidelity screen is essentially what you see on the right here. On the left is a screenshot directly from my phone of a Spotify screen. That's just exactly what you would see if you were interacting with it. On the right is a hi-fi screen of that I created in Figma. So like this is a very, very accurate representation of what you would be interacting with for you if you were an actual user, right? Um, there are very, very minor differences just because that happens. But essentially, what a high fidelity screen is a very true to life representation of what the user would be interacting with if they were actually to use the product, right? So, when would we actually use this? Last week, we talked about low fidelity screens. We talked about how those come up during the iteration process, right? So, if you're creating a new flow or a new project or something entirely new, you might want to use low fidelity in order to kind of figure out a bunch of different ideas or different ways you can lay out information or different text or things of that nature. It's really quick to do. All you have to do is make screens with really simple squares and lines, no real colors, no real details. You're able to really quickly iterate because you're able to play with your ideas very quickly, very rapidly. You're able to throw away ideas if they don't make sense, and you don't feel bad because there's no time or energy really invested into making low fidelity frames. Once you kind of figure out um, a, a layout using low fidelity frames that you like, a lot of people then move on to mid fi screens, which is kind of what you see in the middle here. You're adding a bit more detail. It doesn't really look like what you would end up interacting with, but the user is better able to understand what would actually be on there, like what elements are actually going to be on the page. And then you move into hi-fi. So this means adding color. This means adding iconography, typography. This means adding actual pictures, right? So You go from something that's entirely composed of just like rectangles and squares and lines into something a little bit more detailed, into something that looks very, very, very close to what you would actually see on the screen if you were using the product. Right. So that is one way we might use hi-fi. The second way is if we're working in an established, with a more established product, right? So let's say we're Spotify. The screen on the left there is what you would see if you were to open Spotify now, for the most part. Um, and let's say we wanted to, for some reason, modernize the screen even more, right? It doesn't make much sense for us to go from something that's pretty polished here and then go all the way back to the drawing board to rearrange all of our elements, right? And to move on to something else. It makes a lot more sense for us to just work from hi-fi to hi-fi, right? And is being said because a lot of companies already have design systems set up. As you can see on the right here, this is an example of Spotify's design system. Um, a lot of designers at these companies are just kind of like dragging and dropping different components from their design systems onto the page. It doesn't make much sense to go from something that we know already works all the way back to lo-fi in order to find a new way to do it, right? It makes a lot more sense just to go from what we know works into something else that's slightly different and work from hi-fi to hi-fi. All right. So, with all of that being said, we are going to do a very similar thing to what we did last week. If you weren't here last week, no worries. I think someone is going to drop a link in the chat for a Figma file that we started up last week. If everyone can join that, that would be great. Um, and then I'll briefly explain a few more things. Um, if one of the moderators wants to put that link in there, maybe, or I can do it. If they don't want to, that'd be thanks, guys. Really appreciate the help out here. All right, so there's a link in the chat now. If you can go to that, just hop on. There are 2 pages on the top left. There's one page for last week's workshop, and then there's one page for this week's workshop. We're going to be working on this week's workshop, obviously. So just go to that page, and then I'll give everyone like 20 seconds to get there, and then we'll continue from there. All right. So, while everyone is kind of funneling in here, I'm going to explain a few things. So, I'm still sharing my screen, I believe. So, you should be able to see what I am looking at. But basically, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking a screen very similar to what you left off with last week, which is the lo-fi screen for like when you're looking at a track on Spotify, and we're going to be turning it into the hi-fi version of it, right? So that's the basics of what we're doing. I wanted to cover a few things before we get into it. The first of which being kind of like a few of the details that we go over with hi-fi stuff, right? So this means we're adding typography. So we're adding actual text. We're also going to be adding iconography. So we're going to add icons for all the buttons and stuff like that. And with all that being said, I kind of want to go over like how to get icons, right? So if you're looking for icons, there's a few different ways you might approach it. The first of which might just be like looking up like a specific icon you need. So let's say you need a shuffle icon, you can just Google that straight up. If you need a specific shuffle icon, you might Google like Spotify shuffle icon, and you might be able to find an SVG or a PNG file that works for you. That's like a very basic way to do it and might not yield the best results. You can also look within an icon library or look within a design system in order to find icons, right? So you can do that just by looking up specific design systems, and sometimes they're going to be online. One that I like to draw from is Material Designs, just because that's Google's design library, and they have it open to developers and designers everywhere. I've included a link to that down below. It's in the blue text over here. You can check that out if you want. It's just a really cool, really vast library of icons that you can use that have pretty much everything you might need. They have it in a variety of styles. And then one last way you can find icons is to use plugins. So on my screen here, if you were to look at the top left on the toolbar, there's a bunch of different tools. There's one that has like a square and a star and another square and another square. It should be like the sixth option. I can't count. The sixth option, and it says resources. If you click on that, you pull up a little search bar, and if you just look up Iconify, which is spelled just icon and then IFY. Oh, if you first of all, if you go to the tab that says plugins and you do that, you should find Iconify, and yours might say something like Run next to it. This is the plugin that I use on Figma in order to find icons. I think it's really handy. If you click on it, it should run and pull up a new window. And this is where you can just find icons. So, like, if I'm looking up, let's say, like shuffle, you'll find a bunch of different shuffle icons. And the best thing about Iconif, I think, is that it categorizes everything within collections. And so, let's say I had like a very specific design language in mind, I can find a collection that has that design language and ensure that all the icons I find and use are with the same design language. So nothing seems like entirely out of place, right? That's a great way to keep cohesion in mind and make sure that your designs make sense from a visual standpoint. With all that being said, I've included the majority of the icons you'll need down here, and it'll be in everyone's little box that I'll show you guys later. I've also included some colors for you guys to use. And then finally, the font that Spotify uses is an offshoot of a font called Circular. They have their own like proprietary specific font, but I've included a link to Circular here if you guys want to use it. Again, that's not entirely necessary. You can make all of this with just the fonts that are already on your system. So no worries about downloading that if you don't want to. But if you want to make it look a little bit more realistic, then go for it. I will say that after you download Circular, it should like give you like a zip file. You have to unzip it and then download all those fonts to your system. After you do that, you're gonna have to restart Figma if you're using the desktop version at least, because I know it doesn't refresh automatically. But with all that being said, down below, I see a lot of you guys have started exploring already. There are a bunch of boxes that just say student name. If everyone can go to one and then double click on where it says student name and just kind of type their name there so they can claim it. And if you want to like change the background color of it or something to distinguish it as yours, that'd be cool. Just this way, no one has to worry about someone else like messing with their stuff or anything like that. And I'll give everyone a few seconds to go ahead and do that. If you don't know how to change the fill color, when you click on the box, there's going to be a panel that opens on the right hand side of your screen. And then if you look down it, there's one section that says fill. It should say like C1, C1, C1. If you click on the color box next to it, you can change the color there. But I see a lot of people already understand that and are already getting to customize their looking. Right. So, like I said, we are going to be making what you see on the left side of your screen into the right side, but not exactly. I'm going to give everyone the freedom to choose their own album. So, in the next like 2 minutes here, what I'm going to have you do is find an album that you like, a musical album, and then find the cover art for that album. So if you just like look up the name of the album and cover art after that into Google, you should be able to find it. It's gonna be a square image. Just find the cover art for that album, and then also note like a song from that album, and then the name of the artist of that album, and just find those pieces of information. Download the cover art, and then come back. I'll give everyone, like I said, like 2 minutes, so like 7:21. I'll give everyone until then to do that just of any album. Obviously, let's try to keep it kind of PG because this is a club activity and we don't want craziness going on. But yeah. And then obviously, if you're having any trouble with anything I'm talking about, feel free to leave a message in the chat. Something else I'm gonna note is that it might be a little bit difficult to follow along just because I'm gonna at times expect you to see what I am doing on the screen, and then at times do what I'm doing on the screen by yourself. so it might be hard to switch between tabs while I'm talking. So I'll try to be very deliberate with with my instructions. If you have like dual monitors, that's a great time to use them. But if not, I'll just try to be very specific about what I'm talking about, and then also just like leave a question in the chat if you have some confusion. Either Lily or Sanjana will probably try to answer it in the chat, and if it's something that they think should be brought up and repeated, then they'll tell me, and I'll try to repeat the instructions. But yeah, everyone should pretty much have their album by now, which is great. So we're gonna get started in making our screen. The first thing we're gonna do to really get it started is we're gonna actually put the album cover into the screen. And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna click on the big empty box in the middle of your screen where the album should be. Once we're highlighting that box, right, on the right side of it, on the right side of your screen, there should be a panel. One of those sections says fill. Under it, there's like a gray box, and then next to it, it should say D9, D9, D9. You're going to click on that gray box, and then that opens up a new panel. And then there are like four box options within that panel. The first one is what you're selected on. It says solid. The second one says gradient if you hover over it. And the third one says image. We're going to click on image. And that should turn the original box that you're clicking on, it should turn it into like a checkerboard pattern. Now, um, in that new panel that you had, if you hover over the checkerboard in that panel, it should say choose image. And if we click on that, we should have the ability to choose a new image to replace that gray box. And we're going to choose the album art that we just did. So if everyone can go ahead and do that, that'd be great. Um, I'll give everyone a few seconds to catch up here. All right. Looks like most of everyone has their album art set up. And now we're going to move on to the background color because that is another huge visual aspect of this hi-fi, right? So we're going to click on the actual frame. You can do this just by clicking on the words lo-fi player at the top left of the frame. That should highlight everything, and you'll know you have everything highlighted because on the left side of your screen, um, in that like menu, you'll see that lo-fi player is highlighted, and everything under it is also highlighted. Um, Now we're going to go to that same fill box, the one that you just interacted with for the album art, right? The fill box this time should say like 121212. I'm going to click on the black square. And then this time we're going to choose on the second box option. So it should say gradient. We're going to click on that. And this should make your background like a weird transition from black to like transparent white. That's okay. Uh, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the left square that is like entirely black. So like there's a horizontal line that has a like a gradient on it. We're going to click on the square that's on the left of it. It should be entirely black. And then we're going to click on the eyedrop tool, which is just below the little color selector. There's an eyedrop tool. We click on that, and we're going to just choose like a very prominent color that's on our album art, right? So if your album art is mostly orange in my case, we're going to choose orange. If it's mostly like green or blue or whatever, just choose a bit of your album that is that color. And once we've done that, it should be a color gradient. Someone just changed the background color. I don't know why you did that, but all right. Um, and then we are going to choose on the right square. So the square that is half black and half checkerboard, we're going to choose that. And then we're going to increase the opacity by coming down next to the eyedrop tool. There's like a horizontal bar that has a rainbow on it, and then there's a horizontal bar that has a clear to black gradient. We're going to drag the second bar, that clear to black, we're going to drag it all the way to black. And that should give us a relatively accurate gradient on what we're doing. And then we can close out of that menu. We have our background color set up. Again, if anyone has questions, feel free to leave them in chat. I think most of us are doing pretty well. If your gradient is flipped, it's because you did the right box and then the left box. So you can just drag those to swap them. Or if you want to keep it flipped, that's also cool. But now we are going to get into text. And if your first time using Figma was last week, this should be one of the first times you're using text. If you're more experienced, then you should already know what's going on. But um, we're going to start by naming our album, or at least writing the name of our album at the top. At the top, there is like two boxes on your screen, and in between them is a horizontal line. That is where the name of your album is going to go. And the way we're going to do that is first we're just going to select the line. We're just going to click on it once, and then we're going to delete it. That just was an indicator of where the text would go. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the top left of our toolbox. There should be a big T. Um, if you hover over it, it should say text. Or you just click the letter, like the T key on your keyboard, and you just click where that line was, and then you're going to type in the name of your album. In this case, I'm typing Free Time because that's the name of the album I chose. You can type whatever that name of your album was, and you might notice that a variety of things could happen. Your text might be too big. It might be like a really weird font. Maybe it's like not where it's supposed to be. Maybe your text box is really long or something. We'll get into all of that really shortly, but everyone just type the name of your album first. Um, Now, if you are still selecting your text, you'll notice that on the right side of your screen, there is a text panel that opens up, right? So instead of saying, or above where it says fill, like we saw earlier, it says text. And below the word text is where we can find our fonts. So if we were to want to change our font for some reason, right? If we downloaded Circular, for example, or if you just have another font you have in mind, this is where we can change the font. Under that is a uh, a way for you to find different like weights or different cases of your font. So if you wanted to make it bold or like really light, you can choose those things. Um, and then on the right side of that is where you can find the font size. So this is where you can adjust it if your font is too big or too small for some reason. You can change it there. And then you'll also see that there are alignment tools near the bottom of the text panel. I'm going to skip over some of the stuff that's in the middle just because it's not relevant for what we're doing right now. But there are also alignment tools, bottom left. These are something you might recognize from like Microsoft Word or Google Docs. There's an align left, there's an align center, and there's align right. For this, what we're doing right now, we're going to want to align center just in case your text box is really long and you don't know how to adjust it. We're just going to align center, and that should help us make sure that this is all centered, obviously. And then at the top of the menu on your right, all the way at the top, under the words design and prototype, are other alignment tools. These are for alignment within the frame that you're working in, and I'll kind of explain that in a second here. But there should be like a few horizontal lines, and they're like all interacting with the vertical line. We're going to choose the second option. So this should be two horizontal lines with a vertical line going right through the middle of them. If you hover over it, it should say align horizontal centered. And if we click on that, that ensures that our text is right in the middle of our screen, right? So we don't have to worry about fidgeting or like moving it around to be pixel perfect. This just automatically does it. And how you know that this is in the middle of your frame and not like some other element is on the left side of your screen. If you're still selecting your text, you should see that your text is highlighted and it's under the lo-fi player frame, right? It's within that object. I think Sanjana kind of explained frames last time, but yeah, that is how you know it's inside of the frame. All right. So now that you kind of understand how to do text, right? I'm going to have you guys do that again, like two more times. Under the cover art on the left side are two more horizontal lines. If you look at the example on the right side of your little box, you should see the words painkiller, and under it, it should say rule. Um, but that's where you're going to put the name of your song, right? So the name of a song in your album. And then under it, you're going to put the name of your artist. And the same concepts I just talked to you about apply. You're just going to hit text or you type T. You're going to type on the page, and then you're going to delete the line that's under it, right? If you want to delete the line first, that's also cool. But you're just going to put the text where it should be. It should be pretty self-explanatory. If anyone needs help, feel free to leave a um, message.
We have a question from Anonymous. They're
Mhm.
asking how they can get the circular Spotify font because it is not included. with the basic Figma font
Sure.
package.
So at the top of the Figma file is a big brown box called resources. Within that, there is a big link that's green. It says circular font download. You can click on that, install the font. After you install it, you might have to like just close out of Spotify or close out of Figma and then open it back up just because it doesn't automatically refresh. But that should help you out there. Um, and again, oh, I also failed to mention that you can also change the color of your font, right? So of your text. So if you're selected on your text and you go down to where it says fill, you can click on that colored box like we've been doing, and then you change it to whatever color. Spotify specifically uses white with like most all of their text, so that's what I'd recommend if you want to have it look relatively realistic. If not, that's also cool. Um, but yeah, change it to that, and then you can adjust the size and the weight of your font as necessary if you want to kind of copy what it looks like in the example. I'll give everyone like another 10 seconds to get that done. If anyone has questions, again, leave them in the chat. Someone will look at them and try to answer what you're asking. I might not be looking at it just because I am doing the class. And then if you look at the example, you'll notice that the name of your artist is slightly darker than the rest of the text on the page. That's because it is white, but not entirely opaque. It's slightly transparent. This is something that a lot of modern apps and companies are doing just because that's kind of like what's popular right now is using different opacities of white in order to indicate depth and make things feel like they're more more like three-dimensional rather than just using like a bunch of different accent colors. And so the way you can do that is you just click on the name of your artist and then you set the fill to white. But then next to the fill, next to the FFFFF, you'll see a percentage. It says 100% right now. And if you just click on that and then change it to 60, it should look a lot more like the example. So this is, again, it's just white, but it's slightly transparent. So some of the background color is coming through. And that's what you can do there. Um, Once everyone has those two pieces of text in order, I think pretty much everyone who's working does, we can move on to icons. So the first 5 icons I'm going to have you work on are in a horizontal row right under like the progress bar. If you look at the example, this is your shuffle icon, your previous track icon, your play button, your next track, and then your repeat icons. I've included all 5 of those for you in your box. You don't have to go and copy them anywhere. They're right there for you. But you will have to adjust the um, you'll have to adjust the sizing of them probably and the color. Both of which are relatively intuitive, but if you don't know how to do that, um, I'm going to say just like first of all, we're going to delete a box, and then we're going to move the icon that should be there to where the box was, right? So I'm going to start with the shuffle icon. I'm going to move it to where the box was, and then I am going to change the color just by clicking on fill, right? The fill box, and I'm going to drag it on up to white. That's what it's supposed to be in this UI. I'm going to do the same thing with our previous track icon, change it to white, and then we have reached the first time we have to resize an icon. So I'm going to drag my play button to the middle of the screen, right? That's where it's supposed to be. I deleted the box already. And now I'm going to hold shift in order to make sure that this is resized while keeping its scale, right? I'll hold shift and just drag on one of the corners until it feels about right. Um, and then I'm going to move it back to the center of the page. And I'm going to change the color to white. Um, And then I'm going to do the same thing with the last 2 icons. I think everyone should be following along by now. Relatively simple, just a few clicks and drags. And then if you guys want to like highlight multiple of the icons at once in order to change the color, that is also a thing that you can do. It's relatively intuitive to just highlight multiple things and then change one aspect about them both. But I'll give everyone another like 10 seconds to get that done in case there's any confusion about how to do that. it looks like most people have most of those icons set in place, which is great. Again, you are probably going to want to change the colors to white. You can do all that at the end if you want, but just because of legibility, you'll probably want to make them all white. All right. Um, I'll move on in a few seconds. I think most people have it set, or at least they know how to if they don't already have it set. We're going to move on, and we're going to do another pretty big icon on this page, which is the check mark icon in your example on the right side of your page. Um, this is a check mark to indicate whether this song is saved in your liked playlist, right? It is on mine, so that's why it's on the UI here. But the way we're going to do that is you'll notice that I did not include the check icon for you. We are going to go and find the icon, right? And you can do this in a variety of ways. I mentioned them earlier. Um, if you want to look online for it, go for it. The way I'm going to do it right now is I'm going to use Iconify. So I'm just going to right click, and then in the menu that pops up, there's your plugins. I'm going to that menu. I'm click on Iconify. If you haven't already used Iconify, it probably won't be there, so you'll have to look it up when you go into plugins, which is very simple. But I'm just going to look up check mark, and you'll see that a variety of check mark options come up. I'm going to choose this one because it looks very similar to what I need. And then I'm going to scroll down to the page. Um, it's going to ask me what color I want it in and what the size I want it in. I'll just keep it default, and then I'll import the icon. And you'll find that when you import the icon, it is probably going to be outside of your page a little bit. It's going to be on the right, and it might blend into the background because the background is also white. So like when you import it, don't click anywhere and just go look for it, and it'll be highlighted already. I'm going to grab that and just drag it on over to my page. And then you'll also notice that when you're working with Iconify specifically, I'm not sure if other plugins do the same way, but when you import icons from here, they'll be inside of a frame, which can be kind of hard to work with sometimes. So if you want to just like click on the actual vector file, I say vector because that is what that's what like this type of file is called. You can just drag the vector out of the actual frame and then only work with the vector. It doesn't really matter if you keep it in the frame. That is for more advanced prototyping and like um, in a more advanced workflow. So you don't necessarily need it right now. But and then if you do drag it out of the vector, or if you drag the vector out of the frame, you can delete the frame. If you don't, that's cool. You can just work with the frame. I'm going to resize my icon to about the right size. I'm going to delete the old placeholder for the icon, and I'm going to drag it into place. And then you'll notice that I've included the Spotify green inside of your box for you. So you can go to fill, choose the eyedrop tool, and then choose green. Um, let's see. I think most people kind of understand how I got there, um, assuming that they started when we all started. All right. So I'll give everyone else a few seconds to get that done. And then we'll move on. Now, we have a few more icons on our page that we haven't used. We're going to get to them right now. So the first one being this connected devices tool, right? Or the connected devices icon. And rather than dragging the box or deleting it and then like dragging the icon over, we're going to use something else called replace. Uh, what is it called actually? It's called replace paste to replace. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to highlight the connected devices icon. And we're going to copy it. You can do this by Command C or Control C, or just right clicking on it and hitting copy. And then we're going to go to the box that we're trying to get rid of. We're going to click on that, and then we are going to right click on it and then hit paste to replace. You can also do this by doing Control Shift R or Command Shift R, and we're going to replace it. So you'll see that it just took the place of the box. It's going to be slightly too big, right? Because the boxes are a bit smaller, and that's just how it is in the UI. So you might want to drag it to be smaller and then change the color to white. And we're going to do the same thing with the two icons that are on the right of it. So these are at the bottom of your near the bottom of your page on the right side. These are the share icon and then the queue icon. So we're gonna do the same concept. We're gonna click on that. We're gonna hit paste to replace. We're gonna use the queue icon, paste to replace. We're gonna make both of them smaller because they are not as big in the actual UI. And then we're gonna make both of them white. So I'll give everyone a bit of time to catch up there. I think most people have it down. Pretty simple process so far, right? Um, and then again, if you're falling behind a little bit, no worries. You'll have time after the workshop if you want to continue working on this. And then also, our recording is going to go up sometime this week so that you can continue to follow it there if you would need to pause or anything. All right. So we have most of our icons set up. There are a few more icons. The first of which is going to be this like downward caret icon that is at the top left of our screen. Um, Feel free to put that there however you'd like. If you want to drag it there, if you want to paste or replace, do whatever your heart tells you. Um, but you'll probably notice that if you try to shrink it, it's looking like really, really thick for no reason. Um, the way we're going to change that is that this is a line, right? So there's a few different types of objects that you'll find in Figma. There's like a few different shapes. One of them is a line, and they have a quality called stroke, which is a tab that will be on the right side menu. You'll see if you highlight it, you'll see stroke. There's a few factors on here, but the one we're going to be paying attention to right now is the thickness of the stroke. So you'll see three horizontal lines of varying thicknesses, and next to it, the number should say like 4.8. If you just want to type to replace that number with like a stroke thickness that you have in mind, you can do like 2 or something. Or if you just want to drag on the three lines of varying thickness, you can drag them left or right, and they'll also change the stroke. Um, so I think the actual number is 2 if you want to be accurate. Yeah, it should be 2. And then again, we're going to change that color to white. And then one of the last icons on your page are these 3 dots at the top right. You'll again notice that I didn't give that icon to you. So we're going to go ahead and make the icon. We're not going to find it anywhere. We're just going to straight up make it. And the way we're going to do that is first we're going to delete this box. And then we're going to go to the shape tool at the top left of our screen. Generally, I think it should be like a square on for the option. But if you hit the drop down menu, there's an option for ellipse, which is like circles and stuff. You can also just hit O on your keyboard, and it should pop up with the tool. And we're gonna make a few ellipses. And in order to make these circles and not like weird like ovals, we're gonna hold Shift while we're dragging. So we're just gonna drag out a few ellipses. You can make one and then copy and paste it, with Command C, Command V, or Control C, Control V. Um, so we're going to make a few. We're going to space them apart a little bit in a horizontal line. And once you have them spaced in a horizontal line, we're just going to highlight all of them. And then we're going to hit Control G or Command G to make them a group, or you can right click on them and then it'll be like group selection. They're all a group now. So they are going to act as one object unless you go inside of the group and individually interact with them. But this means like when you drag them around, they all come as a group. And also means if you make any adjustments to them, they also all function as group. So I'm going to make them white because that's the color that we've been using. And they're all going to turn white at the same time. Very handy. Um, all right. So now we are mostly done with the page, actually, which is very nice. Very cool. Um, we are going to go ahead and work on the progress indicator in the middle, like the near the middle bottom of your page, under the title of the song. There is an indicator to tell you how far into the song you are. This is going to be a pretty simple process, actually. I've already given you a line, and it's the right thickness, so you can thank me later. Um, you can just click on that big line, and then you're going to go into the right side menu, right, where we've been working with all the other details on the right side. Under stroke, there are going to be the options that we talked about previously, but then there's also like two ends of the line, and they're like squared off right now. It should say start point and end point. If you go to start point and click the drop down menu, we're going to click round. And by default, this might change both sides of your line, which is like good. If it doesn't already change both sides of your line, you're going to go to the end point and then also change that to round. So you'll notice that in the actual like UI, these are rounded off. Now you can do it with a line in Figma. And then if you were looking through that drop down menu, there's a bunch of different options in case you ever need to make like a line graph or something. But right now, we're just gonna use round. And then we're gonna change the color. So we're gonna change the color of the stroke to white, but we're gonna change the opacity to we're going to change it to 25%. So again, if you just click on that line and you look at the stroke color next to the FFFFFF, we're going to see that there's a percentage. You can click on that percentage and change it to 25. And that'll make it look a lot more like the background color in the actual UI. Once you've done that, we have like this is like the full progress indicator, right? Now we have to actually make the line that indicates how far we're actually into it. So we're just going to do that by clicking on the line again and then doing Control C, Control V. That should paste another line either directly on top of the previous line or like above your previous line. Um, we're going to take it and we're going to click on the right side of it. Your it should be pretty obvious when it indicates that you're actually dragging the size of the line, and we're just going to hold Shift and drag it to the left a bit. And this can be however far you want, however far into the song you want to be at. I'm gonna do like around halfway, I guess. Um, and then with that new line, we're gonna change the color back to fully opaque white. So if you're clicking on it, you'll see that it's only 25% right now. We're gonna change it back to 100%, and it should look a little bit like that. All right. So I'm going to assume that most people are still with me and still understand what's going on. Again, no worries if you are falling behind a little bit. This will be available as a recording. All right, so we're going to add the little circle that's on top of that because on the actual UI, there's a circle there to show the user where they can actually drag with their finger, right? It's a call to action. Um, we're going to use our circle tool again. You can either go to your shape tools or you can just press O on your keyboard. And we're going to drag out a little circle and we're going to put it right where um, the line, the progress indicator kind of ends. I'm gonna put it on top of there, and then we're gonna change the color to white. All right, now our progress indicator is almost done. There's two more pieces of text that go on the screen, and those are just the timestamps. So the line on the left side is gonna be how far into the song we are. So you can just add text that says like, a minute 30 or however long you want it to be. And then on the right side is text that says how much time is left. So here you can put like -1 minute or however long in a song you have left to go. Um, and then you'll also notice on the actual UI, these two bits of text are also a bit darker than the normal text because they are also white, but with 60% opacity. So you'll do the same thing we've been doing to change the transparency of everything, but you're going to set these to 60, just like the name of the artist. Um, Let me see how people are doing. Most people are doing fine, pretty much caught up. Good to see. Good to see. All right. And now we are in the final stages of making the screen. The first thing we're going to do is make this box at the bottom here. You'll see that like there's a little lyric sheet peeking out. We're going to make the box the right color. And I don't have like a recipe for this color because it's like based on your cover art somehow. But I'm going to say that you can change the fill color to basically what the top of your screen is. So like if you just want to use the eyedrop tool and go to the top of your gradient and click on a color up there, that should be like relatively accurate. Um, but I don't know exactly how they determine it. Um, and then we are going to replace the word lyrics there. That should be the actual last piece of text that's on your page. So we're going to type the word lyric in. And again, if you're confused by anything I'm saying, you can refer to the example on the right side of your box. Um, it should say lyrics, and it's going to be in white text. Um, and then we're going to put the two icons up there. So there's the share icon, and then there is an expand icon. You'll notice that both of these icons are in circles. So um, what you can do is you can just make a circle first, right? Put it where the icon is supposed to be, and then you can change the color of that circle to um, just like a slightly darker version of the color of the box. If you just want to use the eyedrop tool and like click somewhere else on the page, that's cool. Um, and then we're gonna take one of those icons that we're supposed to have, and we're just gonna drag it on over to the circle, put it on top of the circle, resize it a little bit. Um, you'll see that it's centering with the circle because it's snapping there. And then we're gonna highlight both of these things. So if you're highlighting, you might find that you're dragging the background box. You might be dragging the lyric box, right? If you just hold control while you're highlighting, it won't drag whatever you click on initially. And you can just highlight both of these things at once. And we're gonna group them. Um, and then from here, once you group two things, again, you can move them as a group, however. But if you want to interact with something that's in the group, all you have to do is, like, say, I want to change the color of this share icon again. You just have to double click and keep on clicking until you get to the element that you're trying to interact with. So I just double clicked because it's only one layer deep. And I got to the share icon. I'm going to change the color to white. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to copy and paste and then delete the icon instead of making a new circle. But you can do it however feels natural to you. I'm going to drag the expand icon over, put it in the middle of the circle, change the color to white, and then group these two elements. I think most people should be pretty much caught up. I think most people are. Again, if there's confusion about anything, feel free to leave a question in the chat. Someone will try to answer you. Um, or if you need to, you can just wait until the recording comes out and then you can continue following along from there. All right. So we're all the elements that we need are pretty much on the page. There's a few more details that we can clean up and then we can say that we're pretty much done. Those elements being the roundness of things, right? So if you look on your example, you'll see that the album art cover is round. And then you'll also see that the lyric sheet is also rounded in the corners. So the easiest way you can do this is you just click on your album art, and if you look, um, if your cursor is hovered over the album art, you'll see that in the corners there are like these circles, right? In every corner, you can just grab onto one of those and drag it in a little bit, and that'll help you round the radius of things, right? That's the easiest way to do it. You can also, if you're clicking on the album art and you have it highlighted, you can go to the right side of your screen and in that menu, there's a bunch of information about your album art. So it says like the X and Y coordinates. It has the width and height of your album art. Um, there's like the degree of rotation that it's at. And then there's also the corner radius. So you can go in and manually change that number to suit your needs. You can retype the number, or you can drag on the actual icon and change the radius that way. Um, I think the actual radius is supposed to be 9. So if you want it to be exact, that's the number you're going for. And then at the bottom with the lyric sheet, the same exact thing. You can just click on the box, drag the corners in a little bit, and once you've done that, we are pretty much done with this tutorial. Everyone should have a nice little Spotify track screen. And congratulations, you made it with your own two hands if you have two hands. Um, and thank you for listening. Um, before I leave, I would like to reiterate that we do have, I think, 6 more lessons. In 2 weeks from now, we have prototyping. And then after that, components, auto layout, style guides, and variables. I'll also be leading the prototyping session. So if you liked my lesson better than you liked Sanjana's last week, make sure to come out to that. Um, and yeah, we're going to have a feedback form that is going to be posted in the chat right now by Sanjana, I think. Um, please do fill that out just so that we understand how to meet your guys' needs better. Um, if we need to explain things a different way or, you know, whatever feedback you have, we would love to hear it just so that we know how to better teach everyone. Someone deleted the Spotify circular link. That wasn't very cash money of you. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed learning how to make a hi-fi screen. I'm looking around and a lot of them look great. So yeah, thanks for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to stick around and leave those in the chat. Or if they're more complex questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. I'll be sticking around for a bit, so will Sanjana and Lily. But if you are done and you don't feel like you need to ask any questions, you're free to go. Thanks for coming, everyone.